to call this meeting to order. This is the May 29th, 2019 meeting of the Stanislaus Valley Fire and Rescue. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Director Carnahan?
Present.
Director Burns? Director Green?
Here.
Director Phillips?
Here.
And Director Hickson?
Here.
All right, we do have a quorum. All right. First item would be the approval of the minutes from the April 25th, 2019 meeting. Has the board had an opportunity to review the minutes, and is there any discussion or questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion, is there a second?
I would second that.
Motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. This is opportunity for public comment during the meeting. This will be to address the board with anything that's not on the agenda. We will allow 30 minutes for public comment, with each speaker being allotted 3 minutes. Is there any public comment this evening?
I just want to thank the board and this district for all it did for me. I haven't been back to a meeting since, and I love this organization, so thank you.
Here. Thank you, John. All right, we'll move on to the financial presentation and review, and the bill ratification.
Okay, so transfers from last month's resolutions have been made and are reflected in the April financial reports. We're 10 months into the fiscal year, so expenses should be tracking at around 83.4%. Everything looks pretty good. Also in your packet is a copy of the approved budget summary, but there's going to be more discussion on that to come when we start talking about the third entity.
Yeah.
So I really don't have anything major to report, but I'm available for any questions if you have any. Yeah.
Just check number 26911. It's Taylor Security and Lock. It's for $11,485.
I believe that was for the purchase of all the programmable locks for the Special Districts Security Grant that went to all the stations.
Okay. The other question I had was, is this $2,100 the last for Kathy Taylor? Is that bring her
That
current?
was for some discussions we had in preparing the budget. We had some consultation with her when Chief Abel was on board.
Right.
I don't know if it will be the last,
Okay.
but because she is still contracted through us as a consultant if needed, but there won't be any major expenses.
Okay, and then Umpqua Valley Fire Service. Check, be check number 26948.
I believe the fire extinguishers were checked.
Is that the
Fire extinguisher checks and rebuilds, and we had to have the check valves rebuilt on the sprinkler system for this building.
Okay, that's roughly $3,000. I was curious about that. Okay, thank you.
I have one. Chris Barr, are we done with him? I thought we were.
He is still our auditor, and I was going to talk about that in my admin report. I have a RFP ready to go out to other municipal auditors. Western Lane had 3 years, and Stanislaus Valley, let me rephrase that. Western Lane had completed their 3-year contract with Chris Marr. Stanislaus Valley has completed 2 out of their 3-year contract, but we are looking at getting other quotes for auditors, and he will be included in the RFP. So we're hoping those can go out this week, so we can have quotes back prior to the next meeting in June, the end of the month meeting.
Okay, so I was just curious if we paid Chris Marr to kind of make things right, and then Kathy Taylor to come in and change them again?
No, they were 2 separate things. The last billing for Chris Marr was for his last work on the audits, and the consultant with Kathy was more in regards to the budgets.
Okay.
Other questions on the financial displays?
No.
If not, then we need a motion to ratify the expenditures for the months of $161,877.01.
I would so move.
Moved. Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That would be none. All right. The budget is in here, but it's the budget that we went through the budget committee process. I don't think there's any further discussion at this point, right?
That's correct. It's just a copy of what was approved by the budget committee. It still goes for adoption on June 11th, or June 12th.
And there were no changes from what we saw then?
Well, we'll discuss that a little bit later tonight, because we will be discussing some changes.
Okay.
All right, then on to old business. We have the most recent iteration of the proposed IGA for the third entity. And then, Chief, any discussion or presentation on your end on that?
Yes. So y'all have the draft IGA, and we have received comments from Western Lane's board at the last meeting. So I'm just looking for some comments from the fire directors, and then we'll be taking that to Christy Monson tomorrow, or hopefully this week, and get, you know, a better finalized draft for approval.
So you mentioned this, and I caught this as well. I believe there's a couple references in there to just fire chief.
Yeah, so that'll be, I think the intent is fire and EMS chief.
Great.
So we'll change those.
And let me find my notes. There was reference to the meeting requirements. I thought maybe that should be expanded to, hold on. I'm trying to utilize the technology and find my notes on the system here. So it's reference to the same day as the contracting parties joint meeting. I mean, it doesn't really specify, or I guess I would ask the question, do we think it needs to? I think since this third entity's board is going to be comprised of 2 members of this board and 2 of ambulance, and if one of us was not on that third entity board, I would want some certainty that that third entity board is going to meet at the same time that we all meet.
And that's, I'm on page 5.
Am I missing that? Is it in
Under
there somewhere?
meetings,
Go ahead, sorry, go ahead.
under meetings.
Yeah.
I think that blank would be the 4th Thursday, so it would be the same time as the joint board meeting. Was that your question?
Well, that is the question, as opposed to designating a set month or day of the month, could we be as specific to ensure that it meets the same day as the contracting parties boards or meetings?
Yeah, I was gonna put 4th Thursday in there, but we could, or the same day as the,
I'd like to recommend that it read that it be the same day.
yeah,
As
absolutely.
the contracting parties.
And
Just in case the meeting gets changed or something,
Yeah.
and then the other are stuck to the 4th
Yeah,
Thursday.
right.
same day.
Yeah.
And Christie's advice has been to be as specific as possible.
Okay, good. I feel better with that, so. And to clarify for the board, everyone's aware that at this point, no capital assets are being moved into the third entity, but there's provisions in this agreement that talks about if we choose to do that, how we would have to lay that out at this point, correct?
Correct.
No equipment. So,
And we've talked about that. I mean, Chief House is getting a new vehicle. The assumption is, I mean, that's being paid for by Western Lane, it will remain a Western Lane asset.
yeah.
I think at some point we'll be replacing the Durango. And so there's gonna be discussion.
It still runs?
It does. I've been pushing it a lot. No, it does run. But at some point, and then decide, so is that gonna be a SVFR asset? Is SVFR gonna pay 100% of that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's gonna be a discussion for the boards.
Yeah, and certainly I think a topic for a joint meeting.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Any questions or feedback, anything you guys would like to see or is missing?
No, I read it.
It's pretty straightforward.
I still have my same concerns. But
Absolutely.
biggest concern is we just got a new chief and this is somebody else's plan. That's all.
And I can go through a few things that we do want to change or that are important to note. So we need an ordinance approved by both boards, establishing this third entity, but it's 90 days before that goes into effect, once the ordinance has been approved. So I'm not sure exactly what that means legally. Does it mean that we continue with the IGA until October, and then we actually can start the third entity? Again, we'll have to discuss that with Christie. But we'll be reviewing the ordinances in the 2 meetings in June, and then for approval at the last meeting in June, the regular board meeting.
Okay.
And the list of personnel, I mean, everybody's familiar with that. It's gonna be the chief, fire and EMS chief, the fire ops chief, the EMS ops chief, the office manager, office assistants from both SVFR and Western Lane, and then the CST team is gonna be part of this third entity. And on page 4, 6D, that's not true. It implies that the fire code that SVFR has adopted would be mandated throughout the Western Lane area, which of course is not true. I mean, we can't specify that for Mapleton and Swiss Home, so we'll change that. But this is a template for just fire authorities. And we do have to add the chief's job description in there, and we're working on that. The current ones are based on the IGA, so it'll be just some terminology changes. Duties and responsibilities won't change.
And I'm just curious, Dina, do we know or have an estimate of what legal review has cost us for this process?
I do not, well, it's in legal review right now.
Okay, so she hasn't billed us everything yet?
Correct.
I was just curious. At this point, collectively, the board supports this, and so this is what it is.
And it's lucky we've been relying on Terry Nye and Steve Abel for a lot, but still,
Yeah.
there will be some legal
We
costs.
need an attorney.
And then, it's things like auto insurance we have to figure out. So if I'm an employee of a third entity and I'm driving SVFR's vehicle, does SVFR auto insurance cover me? I mean, we'll just have to I assume, but.
I would think that after this becomes legal and the ordinance is done, I think we're gonna have to talk about those assets right away.
Yeah.
And these assets, the vehicles specifically, are owned by the third entity. Insurance is paid by the third entity,
Right.
so.
And that's all has to be decided and approved by the board. And that's it, I think that's. Oh, and we're gonna add the reference, so I had a question, is what happens if the third entity folds? What happens to the employees of the third entity? And I wanted that specified in here, but then Christie was telling us that it's already specified in state law.
Yeah.
That what happens to the employees, so we would still like the reference, the ORS reference placed in there, but.
Just reverts back.
Yep, you just go back to the question is though, a new employee, what if third entity hires somebody, where do they go?
Yeah.
Or are they just out of a job? I don't know, so we'd have to ask her that. But we're getting there.
Any feedback or questions from the board?
No.
Okay.
So you're moving on, the next time we'll discuss this will be at our next board meeting, is that correct?
Yes,
12.
On the 12th, yes.
it should be, all the changes should be incorporated.
Okay, then we'll move on. We have then the third entity budget, which is page 26 of the packet.
So what I did was I took the budget that was approved by the budget committee, and I gave you the summary on page 1, which is actually in the packet as page 26. 26, okay. So we'll start there. First, I want to say that in my admin report, I did some narrative here, and when I first threw this in here with the intent of it being the joint meeting last week with both boards, I had just talked to Steve Silva, who's our insurance agent, and we were having a conversation about how the insurance was going to work for the third entity. And we were talking about how a lot of the rates are based on budget numbers. Well, I got to thinking that raised a flag with me, thinking we need to get this budget adopted by July 1 in order to proceed with the insurance and all the things that fall into place after that. I just spoke to him today, and that is not the case. So we have a little flexibility here. We're not we would like to get this all done, that's our goal, but we are not locked into it. He said that we really need to rely on legal consultation on how that can be done in the event the third entity goes into place, say October 1st or September 1st or so on. So this is not, so I'm proposing it, I'm showing you how the numbers are working, but it's not dire that this get adopted by June 30.
And it could even be December.
It could, yes. So, but again, a lot of that depends on legal advice, because they're the ones who really know how. So we're still kind of trying to figure out what our parameters are and how we can facilitate this. So I just put the worksheets into your packet to show you how I was working out the IGA and the third entity in. So what I did on this page, this first page, you can see what is highlighted in red. So I have removed the income line for the administrative IGA up in the income, and so that does reduce the bottom line of the dollars for the entire budget. That's $178,000 coming out. Then what I did was I took personnel services, and you might want to advance a little bit. Let me just, because it's kind of hard to explain, so I'm going to have to jump around a little bit. I revised personnel services the way it was in the approved budget. And then I added in the 50% of the third entity. And then I did the same with materials and services. That ended up reducing the ending fund balance to $709,000, which is a reduction of about $40,000. So let me keep going. So page 2 is actually, or page 27, is the actual third entity budget. So you have all of the personnel services now. Everybody that was in the IGA has now come into the third entity, which was the fire and EMS chief, myself, the 2 operation chiefs, the 2 full-time admin staff, as well as the part-time admin and the CST and her team. Then you add in all of the benefits, health benefits, payroll taxes, PERS, and some of the miscellaneous things like uniforms and sales stipends. Then we get into materials and services. I don't remember how many discussions I've had, so I'll just say that we knew that there was going to be some audit. There's going to have to be a third audit. There's going to have to be some legal fees, and there's going to have to be some insurance. So I ballparked those numbers. What I don't know is what is going to be everything else. I don't know if we're going to need additional vehicle insurance or vehicle costs. I don't know if we're going to need to pay membership fees to special districts for the third entity. I don't know that. So in talking to, I had a meeting with Director Yesney with Western Lane, and we came up with the idea to just put a bulk number in there. I just put $35,000 in there for whatever these expenses are going to be. That way, we can develop some history this next year. I mean, we can use, see what comes up, and whatever we pay for in the third entity most likely will not be spent in SVFR or Western Lane. Like if we take on an additional office supply, something office supplies, well, neither one of those entities are paying for it. We're paying for it. So it should even out. It's, if you follow me.
Yeah.
So I just rounded out materials and services to an even $50,000, which includes that, that bulk amount that we don't know, the audit, the legal, and the insurance. That's gonna be split 50-50, 25,000 to each district.
We're just considering that then unallocated contingency?
Pretty much.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah, we could call it contingency.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So then if you move down to the next page, this is where I have the original operations personnel services budget, and the line 13 on that is where I take the fire operations chief out of that amount. Then the next page is where I take the administrative IGA out of the original budget and the administrative assistant out. So anything that has to do with the original administrative IGA and the existing 2 people who were in the original budget, they're coming out and going into the third entity. So you follow me there? So now if we go back up to that summary page, on page 26, the personnel services operations, that top line has been reduced to 1.164. Then we're adding in 50% of the third entity. The materials and services, I believe, did not change at all, and we're adding in that $25,000. So that's where we're at with the IGA going out and the third entity coming in, if that makes sense.
But for SVFR, the ending fund balance decreases by about 40,000 versus the standalone budget.
Right, so let me talk a little bit about that. So the reason for that is 25,000 of that is that materials and services. That brings it down to 15,664. So when the personnel, the operations chief and the administrative assistant on the Western Lane side, their salaries and benefits don't exactly match the operations chief and the administrative assistant on the SVFR side. They're a little bit higher because they have a different benefit package, different PERS, different salaries. So there is about a $30,000 difference between Western Lane. Western Lane's 2 employees are $30,000 higher than the SVFR employees. Split 2 ways is about 15,000. So that's where the difference is. So it is costing SVFR at least 15,000 in that wage and benefit split, but the 25,000, we don't know if that's even gonna happen or not.
Sure.
So does that help explain?
Do we think as we get into the fiscal year with the third entity, I know it's an insignificant amount of money, that's contingency, but kind of report on what we think we've spent?
Absolutely, yeah, and this is a work in progress.
Okay, exactly.
So, I mean, it's just the best I can do for this point. The intent tonight is just for a general approval, because again, we can still come back by June 12th with some more fine-tuned numbers. We're still working, we met with the health insurance representative today, looking at different options for health insurance. We're looking at, VIBA chain, there's opportunities there to cut some costs, and we're still working on that and need to fine-tune this down to what we believe we want to present to be adopted. And then there can still be changes by the board on June 12th.
And as not being a taxing entity, it follows the same law budget process, right, though, even though it's not?
Yes.
Okay, so we have to have 2 budget readings for the third entity as well.
No, it's, this would be, I'm presenting a proposed budget to you tonight. You would be approving this budget, and then it would be going to the third step of, it's different than the ordinance.
Right.
The ordinance is 2 readings.
Yeah.
Budget is proposed, approved, adopted.
Right, got it.
Question. You said the 2 employees of Western Lane, their salaries were higher than our fire. Does the fire district absorb the difference, or is that So the fire, so we would be on the hook for higher wages on those two individuals?
Yes.
Half.
Half, yes.
And we don't think it's gonna be that full amount. We're still looking at, that includes overtime for Chief House. He gets overtime when he works, pulls a shift. It's also some question as to, and a big part of that is PERS. He's not in the fire and police part of PERS, and that represents that's about 10% additional of his salary if he goes into the fire and police. So that has not been approved to move him into that by, I guess it would be Western Lanes Board, or I'm not sure if it would be a joint decision. That has to be approved or not approved at some point. So that would be significant.
I was hoping if we're on the hook for half his wages in this third entity, whatever, we would get a say in that also.
And absolutely, and do we gain a duty chief out of it? I mean, is there some benefit to the fire district for that? And I think there would be. And if he does become a responder like that, then we would be required to put him in that part of PERS, but that has to be approved by the boards. So absolutely, you'd have a say.
You know, a subject for a different time, but at some point, especially this will be going forward, we believe, there appears to obviously be a pay equity issue and benefit equity that we have to address.
Well, and health insurance is different,
Well,
the two
yeah,
agencies, and
yeah.
so benefits are definitely different. Absolutely.
And it doesn't happen overnight.
Union negotiations are different. for
Yes.
each one. One question I had was if we, looking at the insurance part of it, if we do now we're looking at sort of an across-the-board insurance for everybody, or?
The insurance for the third entity?
Yeah,
It's more of a liability and theft.
oh,
It's minimal.
okay.
You're talking health insurance?
That, I was thinking. yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you
I
were
was talking about,
talking
yeah, I'm talking
general.
about.
That'll be part of my chief's report, actually, we'll talk
Oh,
about
okay.
some other information on that, but that, yeah, that is something, a concern.
So the bonding and all the stuff that we need, that we currently have, won't be an increase over anything any more than what we're paying now. Is that correct?
I believe it would be, there may be a little bit additional, but there may be some savings then to to SVFR. I'm not sure quite. I'm still talking to the insurance agents. This is all pretty new.
All right, so we need to maybe give a soft approval or recommendation to take it to joint meeting, if you will. Any other discussion or questions on the proposed third entity budget?
So I'm still a little bit fuzzy on benefits for SVFR, and then can you bring back those differences so that we can see where it's gonna end up?
Do you want to talk about now, or you want to do?
That'd be fine. I mean, if it's gonna cost the fire district, I mean, we've been talking about down to like $15,000, because you figure your 25 is gonna
Well,
just be a material savings, just gonna be moved from one pocket to the next.
as Chief Schick said, the majority of this 15,000 is in the PERS.
Right.
Okay.
But,
So-
but I mean, employee cost, if we've got a discrepancy, if we move everybody from their prospective sides to the middle, and now we have to equal the insurance, the, whatever, the PERS and the payroll and all that, we're paying for half, does that make a bigger increase on what the fire's gonna pay for these benefits?
Yes, there's a variation there though, because we're looking at different packages, different options because we're right at health insurance renewal right now for the new fiscal year, so we're looking at different options. Right now, Western Lane their employees pay 10% of their monthly premiums. Saiso Valley the district pays 100% of.
So then we go third entity, do we have to pay 100% of?
Well, I had to pick one way or another to come up with these numbers, so I chose 100%, but that's negotiable. I mean, that's something that can be discussed down the road. So but I had to pick
Right.
a direction to go. So since the IGA already had myself and the chief, and it was already kind of a foundation, when we moved the Western Lane employees over, they left their benefit package and joined our benefit package as it just stands right now. But again, that's flexible because we're in this period of renewal and change, and the chiefship will be talking about that a little bit
And
more.
that would be a savings to the fire district, because the benefit package for Western Lane is higher than the
Okay,
benefit
that's,
package.
I mean, Margaret's gonna have a question here in a minute. But, yeah, I would like to know, you know, because we're rolling into this thing and we're looking at spending, I don't know, a minimal cost of $15,000 to $20,000 is what the initial. But now I hear we're picking up these other employees and we kind of merge all this together and everybody, we're gonna pay half, which may, benefits and wages and stuff may ultimately cost us more than.
And that's a worst case scenario, but
Right.
yeah, if we put the EMS ops chief into the fire police PERS, there's 11 or 13,000 of it right there. An increase, so that has not been approved or decided. He would be going to the SVFR health insurance plan. That's what the board decided, we were gonna use SVFR policies and procedures. So that would be a little bit of savings there. But, and I am, and I'll talk about this later, but I am proposing to both bargaining units that would go to less expensive health insurance. That would be savings then for both districts as well.
There's a public question.
Yeah, this is for the chief. So Matt House would be the only employee that works for the third entity that's eligible for overtime shifts at Western Lane Ambulance. So would the third entity pay him his overtime, or would he be like a part-time employee for Western Lane when he pulled those shifts?
I believe it would be paid through the third entity, so he would still be able to do that, but I mean, that's a great question.
So
I
the
mean,
fire department then has to pay to staff an ambulance for Western Lane Ambulance?
they would be paying for half of that.
That doesn't sound right at all.
Well, not to stop an ambulance.
If Matt did an overtime shift at
Typically,
Western
it's an
Lane,
ambulance.
and the third entity had to pay half of that overtime shift, now the fire department is paying to staff an ambulance. That's not right.
But the fire department can also potentially use him as a duty chief. So then the Western
But
Lane.
that would be on, they're already paying half of his salary. So that's a wash.
Right.
An overtime shift is something completely different.
And that's something that would have to be modified by the boards.
Yeah, as a taxpayer for the fire department, I don't think the fire district should start paying to staff personnel on Western Lane ambulances.
And that's just taking his current benefits and just switching them over, but, you know, it's a good point, and it will be
I
addressed.
mean, I could see an easy solution would be part-time employee at Western Lane pulling shifts, then they pay that wage when he does that work. I mean, that, to me, that's a simple way out.
Yeah.
We can address that when that arises.
I think that's a concern I also have,
That's a good point.
that's all. If we start doing that at this point, we may end up doing that way down the road, but right now, you gotta keep those separate, because an overtime shift at Western Lane Ambulance at his wage probably is somewhere in the neighborhood of, what, $1,800 for 24 hours or something like that.
It's budgeted for 10,000 for the year, so.
So
I don't know how often he does that.
overtime shifts are very, very well
Oh.
compensated.
Chief, I think what I would like to propose is that we rearrange the agenda slightly and have your report and come back to this for final
Sure.
review from the board. So just temporarily table the third entity budget and move on to staff reports, and we'll come back to close with that.
Yeah, no, that'd be fine. So I've had a very busy first month, 3.5 weeks, so it's been a lot of fun. Able to watch personnel on some serious calls, you know, some very serious structure fires and some medical calls. Very impressive group of people, so I'm very happy to see that. And you guys know this, but I mean, Jim and Matt and Dina are fantastic people, and they've really been helping me a lot, and I do appreciate them going out of their way to make sure I have everything I need. We're working on some Meet the Chief days. The plan is, and this is all tentative, how we're gonna work that, so input would be absolutely welcome. I was thinking that I would go out to the various stations, like on a Saturday, one Saturday of the month, and you know, we'd advertise it. They can come down, ask questions, have a cup of coffee, cookies, juice, or whatever, and then just rotate around to some of the stations and do the ambulance space as well. Maybe even out to some of the businesses or something like that. But I think just, you know, maybe once a month or, you know, maybe, you know, 5-6 times a year, just get out there and so they have the opportunity. Board members, of course, would be welcome. Certainly can't have more than two there. But yeah, I think we could send out, once we get that calendar sort of finalized, I think it would be nice to have board members as well out there.
And can we get you on the, like, Kiwanis and Rotary on the
I'm on
agenda?
the Kiwanis June 26th.
Oh, good.
I haven't heard about from Rotary yet, but yeah, no, that's the plan, is to hit as many of the service organizations as possible. Be at least once a year, if not, you know, more often, just to get out.
Do we still have, is it City Club, Florence City Club? Does that still exist? Sorry to say that. Ask the question. Yeah.
You know, in the past, I've liked to go out to the homeowner associations. Some of them have yearly meetings and to do that as well. It's typical, and I think we'll see that, you know, they have a lot of just general questions and what happens when they call 911 and you know, do we charge for lift assist and things like that. So it's good to get out there and I think talk to them.
We have not approved or adopted a budget yet. I mean, it's come out of the committee, but any public question about the tax rate?
I haven't received any, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how well it's been out there. I call it resetting the tax rate, so. But I think it is important to get out there and make sure, I don't want anybody to be surprised when they see their property tax bill that it's gone up a little bit.
Well, reputationally, the district, and certainly you as the new chief, don't want to be perceived as always snuck it in.
Yes. Yeah.
So
it's been mentioned you know, in the newspaper article,
Yeah.
which we had a nice article, and I believe on the radio, June 10th, I think it's that one of those Mondays in June.
okay.
George
Our town or
Yeah, George Henry interviewed me, and that was nice.
Good.
Roadie Days was a lot of fun. It was, I think the rain helped the night before the parade, and it kept things calm. But my wife and I got to ride in truck one, and that was just that was an incredible event, and we really enjoyed that. And we had a few calls, but nothing, I think, out of the normal, so that was good as well. And now with healthcare, so we got our quote for healthcare is going up between 4.5% and 5%. And both agencies are a little bit different in their policy. They have the basic same policy, but Western Lane has 10% employee paid, and fire department is 100% employer paid. And the VIBA is different. It's $1,500 for firefighters, and then it's for Western Lane, it's $1,500 for single employees. If they have children or spouse, it's $3,000. So they're different in the VIBA.
Yeah.
So I've requested that we go to a less expensive option. It increases deductible, it increases out-of-pocket expenses. So it's potential. So somebody that uses their healthcare a lot, they could see some more cost, direct costs. We're looking at, we could raise the VIBA, even we're looking at $4,000, so $2,000 for single, $4,000 for family, and still we would save money on both sides. A little bit less on the fire because there's fewer people, but then a pretty good saving on Western Lanes. But it is a decrease in benefits. I meet with both bargaining units next Wednesday, and the union president from local 851 So we're gonna meet and talk about that. It does have to be agreed to by the bargaining units, because it is a major change in benefits. We did meet with our insurance representative, Kim Nicholson, today, and she came up with some very, very good options for us. And I'm not gonna give away my negotiating tools over the air here, but I think we have some good options where we will save money, and it'll be a benefit to the personnel as well. So I think it'd be a win-win for us, and another important thing would be we'd both be the same on both sides. Everybody would have the same.
When do you think we'll be able to report on those specifics?
Well, the WHA would like our renewal paperwork done by June 7th. So, and I meet with bargaining units June 5th, and they would have to poll their members. So we're hoping that we can push this through fairly quick. So I would think by June 12th, we would know. She's implied that maybe the WHA could be a little flexible. I don't know how much more flexible. I mean, it goes into effect July 1st. And then we have to set up a third insurance policy for the third entity personnel. So that's going to change cost a little bit. And they base it on, who's in that pool. And most of our older employees are moving to the third entity, so that may decrease quite a bit, the other two policies, but yeah, so there may be a few dollars more extra for the third entity. But I'm confident, I'm looking forward to the meeting with the bargaining units, and they know financially that we have to be very conservative and cut where we can. I think this is a good time to do that. And I also met with Jason Hawkins, Chief Turner from the police department, and Karen, I'm sorry, I don't know her last name, but we're talking about this mental health crisis team they want to set up in this area, and I guess they have something now over in the Eugene Springfield area called Cahoots. I don't know if you've heard about that. So it wouldn't be bringing that here, but it'd be, I think, similar in that it would be, these would be individuals trained to deal with people having mental health issues. So right now, their option is to take them to the ER or call an ambulance, and they don't need to be at the ER. They don't need an ambulance. So it would have people trained to do that. They approached us. They would like either Western Lane or I thought the third entity to run the administrative side of this. And I said, well, as long as it doesn't cost us any money, we'd be happy to look at that. Yeah. So yeah. Well, it's supposed to be. Oh, that's a good question. It would be supported by the county. Excuse me, supported by the county under a grant. I don't know how long the grant would last, but there would be overhead costs in that grant as well. So I think it would be by not changing the number of personnel we have. There would be some extra funds, if we did run that administratively. And I think we still need more information on that. And they're supposed to come to our June 27th board meeting to present what the program would look like. And this is something that I would certainly want both boards to approve, that we're going to do this. I think it does fall within our mission. And I think if it doesn't cost the district money, either personnel or actual funds, I think it's something that I think we should consider. But I'll have a draft document about the program by June 8th, and we'll get that out to the board members for review.
I guess we'll hear more about it at that time. When you say to run this administratively, I just think about what kind of work does that mean?
Very similar to what we do with the CST. I think a lot of the CST people would be working as mental health counselors, or I'm not sure the exact name. Lori Severance is being considered or looked at as possibly to be a full-time employee of this mobile health crisis team or mental health crisis team, and that would be completely paid for by this county grant. Yeah. So I don't know that it would be a lot of administrative oversight. It would be more of the monies would be coming to us, and then we would pay the personnel in that team. So it's not something that we would be spending a lot of time on. It just that group would be handling things themselves. Yeah, John.
where would the definitive care be for the mental health?
Say again, where would the,
There's no definitive care here.
so I think that
can't
would be
tell you-
to,
I can't tell you how many trips we did to Tuolumne, because it's the only elderly mental health facility in Oregon.
you know, I don't know if that would change. It would be to try and divert those people that don't need to be transported, don't need to be seen in the ER. And certainly you'll see a lot more detail in their plan.
Yeah, there's some mental health workers here, but they're not trained to deal with long-term.
And this the grant includes training and all their equipment they would need if they need a vehicle. And my big concern was that it shouldn't take away from our MIH program on Western Lane side. It should complement that, but it shouldn't take away from that. And then a safety issue as well. I want to make sure that we're not sending people, you know, out by themselves to address mental health issues. I mean, there's got to be, and PD is highly involved and very supportive of this as well. So.
I think that's half their day right now is dealing with
Right.
individuals that are challenged.
And it's potentially putting an employee just to deal with those issues and with the police department as well.
Well, I know with that one, they generally work in pairs.
Right.
And this is mostly police focused, at least in that program, but here.
Right, yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely, it would have to be, and that would be the same here, but yeah, safety is number one. And it's gonna be a busy board meeting on June 27th, it's gonna be a pinning ceremony for me, and we have 4 new firefighters as well that will need to be pinned, and I'm really looking forward to this. Will be the first time my wife's available for a pinning ceremony for me. It's always been board presidents or something like that, so and she's either been out of town or working, but so this is going to be exciting for me. And on a personal note, we're in our house now. We moved to a house. I say we're unpacking boxes when my wife's unpacking boxes, but I'm in the city proper now, so I've been able to respond more on calls a little bit closer. So that's been nice, and we're looking forward to exploring the area a little bit more and having fun there. Gonna miss our rental beach house, but that's okay.
I don't know if they explained it here, but the pinning ceremony here is a little bit different. It's kind of like the tail on the donkey, so it's just a little bit.
Yeah, it's sort of like the Rangers.
Might want-
Isn't the Rangers that do that?
They're not allowed to do that after 1996.
No.
Actually, it wouldn't happen.
Well, you've been there, done that. So that's my report.
Okay. Any other questions, Chief?
No.
All right, Chief Dickerson.
Operations report for May. Did not include the May calls, even though we're almost complete with that month, but these are just the April calls. Total of 61. We had 10 overlapping calls, with 2 of those being triples in the month of April. I can tell you the next report for the month of May, we're at 98 right now. We're looking to break a record for May, as well as a full month record, and a lot more triples coming into there. Total calls for 2019 at the start of May was 209, puts us a little bit over the estimate that I had for there. Fire property loss you're going to see as 0 and also 0 for the year. I'm checking with our national reporting system. Something's not transferring over from the state and getting that. That is in our reports, and those losses have been recorded. They're just not showing up in the national reporting system. So I'm working on taking care of that. Average number of firefighters per incident is 12. Our multi-alarm assignments, that is including the 12. We were at this point in 2018 just 9 members there, so coming up to that nice 15 number I like to see on scene, especially at structure fires. Our current times are 8 minutes. We're at 7.9 minutes, which puts us well inside our 90th percentile where we should be. Percentages are running right along where they should be. Looking pretty good. A little bit higher on the rescue now, and that's jumped up a little bit because of the dual response, but not at the percentage which I was expecting. I was expecting to see a 10% rise in that, so not as many severe calls as we were looking at. Statistically, Saturday is still our busiest time, and we have a spike Wednesday and Tuesday at 12 and 6:30.
Tuesday.
Yeah, it's weird. You never know when they're going to come in, but that's statistically when they're happening. charts as normal. We're looking, last year we ran the 674, we're gonna be at the 775 pretty easily. My high-end number would be 1150, and that'd be if we really went crazy. In training's been extremely busy. We're currently prepping a house for a burn to learn, trying to beat the burn date so we can get that done. Lots of hazmat training going on, as well as some flammable liquids and gases classes. We're actually bringing that class to town pretty soon. Captain Larson and I attended a 40-hour live fire instructor course, so we're both now certified to do live fire instruction, so that we're covered with the new ORSHA and NFPA rules that are coming out. So we can keep on doing that. On the prevention side, something that is not in the report that Tony and I have been working very hard on, we've pushed very hard the FireWise community, which is a wildfire preparedness. And Southview recently stepped up and was the first community that we've had go into that. That's a partnership between us, ODF, U.S. Forest Service, and their homeowners association. Basically, all we do is recommend who they call, and they call them. All the grants and stuff are coming from ODF and U.S. Fire Service on that, and it's just our name on the plaque. So it's a great program, and it hopefully will help some of the wildfire things there.
Considering where they're at, that's probably a really good idea.
Yep. Yeah, it's gonna take a minute to get there.
Get rid of all the gores.
I don't think they're gonna get rid of all of it. It's really sturdy, but it's definitely in there. Lots and lots of prevention going on. Our Knox Box initiative is really pushing hard. We're getting a lot of those keys out there. We've also put those keys into medic units now so that they have access to those businesses when needed. Recruitment and retention, pretty big report. Our facilities here, Station 1 had its sprinkler system work, and we had the backflow device taken care of. We addressed that in the financial. The HVAC dampener and smoke alarm systems are still being repaired, and the new door locks are going in. New door locks are finicky a little bit, but we're getting them programmed with the new numbers, working out pretty well. The 4-gas monitors and single gas monitors have arrived. They're in the calibration schedule. I want to thank you guys for that. They're almost firefighter proof. The one you don't even have to turn on, the other one's one button and it goes. We are working on getting some the Can-Am repaired. The animal inspections are going on. We had hydraulic hose fail. We've got the backup, so we're good there. Just lots of new stuff. EMS, we've had a strong response and great turnout for the calls. They're really happy to see that. You will see now that the CST report is coming through online. They ran in April 4 calls for a total of 5 hours. They did 5 community support services for 14 hours and 2 trainings for 12 hours. Other than that, there are information in the reports. Do you have any questions?
It appears there are no questions.
Perfect.
Good. All right, Dina, off your report.
Well, once again, we didn't have any payroll errors in April, so I think we're on a roll.
Ooh.
And I'm waiting I want to put out, in addition to the audit RFPs, I want to put out an RFP for IT services. So one of our membership benefits with LCOG is they can provide us with templates. Just so happens that there are IT services as well, but they get that, and they would be also included to bid on that. But I've already reached out to 2 IT services. One company has already made a site visit, and so I'm looking forward to getting that template and getting it out, and getting some visits and getting some quotes. Like I said earlier, the audit RFP, also I wanted Chief to take a look at them before I send them out, so they should hopefully go out maybe tomorrow if we have time. We did some, Chief Schick, Dickerson, and House and I went up to Newport last week and attended a special district's HR, one of their regional HR trainings. It was an all-day event. It was very good. Spencer Rockwell, the pre-loss attorney, was there to talk about veterans' preference in hiring. Judy Clark with HR Answers was there to talk about wage and hour things and payroll deductions, what you can and cannot take out on a payroll check. Jens Jensen is the risk management head for special districts, and he talked a little bit about social media and the potential exposures when checking potential candidates' social media footprint prior to hiring. So that was interesting. And then Pam Bowles with County Insurance Services was there to talk about workplace harassment and how there are so many different types of harassment out there right now, and how HR claims outweigh any of the other claims. So the importance of having good policies, good procedures is vitally important. So we will be working on, getting ours up to date and getting processes in place. As you know, a lot of my time has been working on budgets for the last, actually, has it only been a couple of months? But I did want to thank the board directors and for doing these workshops ahead of time for the budget committee meetings. I think it really facilitated the process of approving the budgets in one meeting, and I wanted to thank you for taking your time out for those preliminary meetings. It was very good. And I think I did want to mention about the SAFER grant. We've been, Chief Dickerson and I have been working with FEMA, and we had submitted a request, over a month ago, and they came back wanting some receipts on some computer usage, some leases, and just some general costs for the recruitment and retention computer use. But when I submitted them, they turned them down and said, well, that's not part of our reimbursement program. So I've had to adjust the reimbursement, only about $1,000. So we're waiting for approval. That should be any day now. And then we are ready to go. As soon as that gets approved, we're ready to go with the next request for all the gear and the exams and get caught up to date on all that. And that should be probably around, the first one's around $65,000, the second one's around $72,000. So we're getting that all up to date.
Excellent.
And I think that's all I have.
Any questions? Let's just go back, just want to make sure that everything has set in. If there's any final question or discussion on the third entity budget, ultimately this will be formally approved and adopted by both boards, but we need really approval tonight to move forward with that. So I would at least see if there's any questions, further questions that we didn't discuss. And if that's on page 26 is where that starts back in the packet. Anything else we need to bring up?
So this is not an actual approval, this is just a move forward, discuss.
Well, I would think that the joint board meetings would want to know that each board individually supports this third entity, and then it would be approved and adopted by both boards, correct?
Yes.
Just sort of soft approval, to
Soft
move forward
approval.
and talk as both boards together.
Yeah.
And there's a subset of board members that are with a third entity working group, or I believe. I just wonder if that group should reconvene, talk about the payroll issues coming over from Western Lane.
Well, yes, I think too that we need to address at a joint meeting how the board of the third entity is formed. And we know it's 2 and 2. I guess it's an internal nominating process. There's a current IGA committee. I don't think necessarily we should assume those 4 are the board of the third entity. Could be, it could be somebody else too.
I know we had talked about, originally when we had talked about it, it was sort of assumed that the IGA committee would sort of just morph into this other thing, but I think.
But there's been, we'll have 3 new directors on the new board, on this
Yeah.
board,
Yeah.
and new directors on ambulance that they may want to voice.
Exactly.
I think it's fair. So, I think yes, but I don't know I think we need to get past this budget tonight.
Or we just come back to June 12th and just, it'll be discussion on joint boards, which I think would work as well.
You know, personally, I think that both, Dina's representation and presentation, I should say, this kind of is what it is. We have a good understanding. We understand there's some dollars that are padded in there for unknown contingency. We'll have to see how much we're really going to spend. So it makes sense, but.
I make a motion to tentatively
Soft approve it.
Soft approve it, with the understanding that we'll convene again with both boards for final approval.
Okay, so we have a motion then for with what he said.
With more information as to cost next meeting. I would second that.
And that would be on that one would be on the 12th. Yeah.
Before we call for the question on the approval, is that clear as for more information on the cost of that?
I think we'll have more information on health
Health
insurance
insurance.
and, right,
Okay, great.
Health insurance and wages and
yes.
how it all kind of works out. But
Well,
I think that,
with Matt and how that's gonna work.
I don't, I'd be curious to see if we can rectify that question in the next 30 days
Yeah.
as to whether the 30 pays all the OT or how we're going to do it.
Just want to make sure that is a conversation that's happening on the Western Lane side too.
Perfect.
And I don't know how often he is pulling overtime shifts. I mean, I'd like to find that out. And I am reducing the overtime budget overall for Western Lane as, trying to reduce their expenditures. So I think that could have an impact as well.
So, just discussion.
Just discussion. There's not an urgency to get this done. I know that even if we approve the budget for it, it doesn't have to go into effect until at some point. So don't feel like I feel like we're being rushed. I know you guys have been working on it for a while, but we as a board haven't. I think that you just, a nice deep breath right now helps a lot, okay? So we know that we can do it at any point during the year. I want that to be known, okay? And I feel more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I just don't like being rushed.
Understood. And as I think someone said too, the ordinance, it's public for 90 days. I mean, so even.
Unless it's an emergency ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is really no sooner than going to be like an October 1 start.
And if it goes till December, it's okay.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. So there's a motion and a second to officially soft approve this budget, subject to more information on benefits and salary costs to come back at the 12th meeting. So call for approval. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Soft approval unanimously. Okay, on the agenda, there was no correspondence. Excuse me, is there anything else that the board would like to bring up this evening that's not on the agenda for discussion?
Thank you, Chief Shea.
Absolutely.
Very much.
Being nothing, then future business, we've got, of course, a special budget meeting on June 12th, 6 p.m. Wednesday here, and then the regular scheduled joint meeting on the 27th, 6 p.m. here. With that, this meeting's adjourned.
See you tomorrow.